Welcome to Bitter Coffee, a comedy podcast from two friends who are just about over it. I'm Darek Fanton.
And I'm Kelly Coffey.
It's a beautiful night. I'm excited for a few things, but the first thing that I want to do for the first time is thank everyone who wrote in to tell me that I don't know what thirsty means.
I think it's strong communication on
I appreciate
part
it.
of our listeners.
I hope that it happens more often. I'm excited that people are listening. I'm excited that people are passionate, and let me tell you, they are, about their current slang and vernacular and how things are used. If you listened to episode 1 of the Bitter Coffee podcast, you may have heard us talk about the word thirsty and the idea that Kelly wasn't quite sure what that meant. I erroneously thought I did know what thirsty meant, and as it turns out, I don't. So I had said something along the lines of thirsty being a way that you talk about sort of being overly sexually interested in someone. As it turns out, I went a little overboard, and it's really just about trying too hard. So I tried too hard to indicate that I knew what thirsty was, so I was sort of thirsty about thirsty. I'm sure I'm using that wrong. Somebody else write us a note and let me know.
I thought it meant that somebody was thirsty. So you're ahead of the game.
I grew up in an age, as did you, where thirsty meant I need water.
Right. I have a thirst.
I have a thirst.
Yep.
And as it turns out, language evolves.
Yep.
And we were left behind, unfortunately.
So hypothetically, if I were thirsty, could I still say I was thirsty?
You have to be careful.
I had
not in mixed company.
3 slices of pizza and then
right.
ran around the block. I'd be thirsty.
Hypothetically. And we did have 3 slices of pizza. We didn't do a block run, but we,
nope.
in continuing our light meal choice before the podcast, I made sure to bring as many carbs as would fit in my car, and we ate a bunch of pizza before the podcast tonight.
I will say this. Besides doing this podcast, I like the pre-show dinner. I really do.
Yeah.
It's a close second to the actual show.
It's nice. It's a good excuse to have some takeout.
Yep.
And chat for a little while.
Yep, I like it.
It's working out great. For us, anyway.
I think that's what people who are social, I think that's what they do.
I have no frame of reference, but I'm imagining. I've heard about having food. Going out and having something to eat, I think is the phrase they use.
Let's meet for dinner.
Right.
And then that's where they have the meal.
So you may have noticed that we have comedy in the intro to the podcast, the comedy podcast, Bitter Coffee. It's something we're trying out. It's a little bit of a placeholder for now. I think you will be the judge as opposed to us, but it felt appropriate because we realized that we've been letting people know occasionally off and on that we're recording a podcast. It's something we're doing after work or whatever, and people would ask, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" "Oh, I got the podcast to record." "Oh, that's awesome. What's the podcast about?
What's it about?
What's it about? What are you guys talking about?" It's a fair question, and I think perhaps one we should have come up with an answer to before episode 3, but ultimately, it's a comedy podcast.
I was at lunch with friends today from work, and it was one of those days. Today's just kind of a weird day in our country.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird days these days.
There's like a ton.
Yeah.
It's easier to pick out the days that aren't weird.
For sure.
And I've kind of made it a point to not involve politics in this show. Just because I think this show offers kind of a break from that.
Exactly.
So
let's be an escape. Let's not stoop to that level,
but
so to speak.
I kind of want to acknowledge the fact that Dr. Ford did this incredibly brave thing today.
Sure.
And so I was watching part of her testimony at work, and I was trying to think about the amount of courage that she needed to gather in order to go before this huge group of people.
Right.
And attend this hearing. And I can only speak for myself, but I have a feeling that you'll probably identify with this.
Okay.
When I'm at the grocery store, if there's the option of checking out with a person or checking out in the self-checkout, I will run to the self-checkout, even if that means I have to wait 20 minutes.
100% of the time.
I can't even deal with a cashier half the time, let alone an entire committee.
Of course.
So I try and kind of put these things aside as much as I possibly can, because if I continue to carry them around, I just won't get out of bed ever.
Sure.
So I was at work, and it was pretty clear that most of us were having a tough day. So my manager said, "Wouldn't it be great if we just went and got ramen?" I said, "Yeah."
Nice.
And I said, "Let's go do that."
Yeah.
So that's what we did. So a few of us went out for ramen. We did some emotional eating, which was great.
That's the best kind of eating.
It's the best kind of eating. And it feels like it's healthy, but ramen's not healthy.
I mean, if it's pushing the feelings down, who's to say that's less good for you than, say, a salad.
It was a lot more enjoyable than a salad.
That's
So
all you need.
people were asking what's going on with you, how are you doing? And I mentioned the podcast.
Mhm.
And it came up like, "Oh, what's it about?"
Every time. That's the only question.
And I didn't really have an answer, and I think I'll never really have a very clear answer. So using comedy as a placeholder makes a lot of sense to me.
For sure.
And so I said to my coworker, I said, "Well, last week it was about house balls and crickets."
House balls and crickets. A completely accurate and probably fantastic episode title for episode 2 of Bitter Coffee.
We should rename our show that.
I feel like there's an opportunity there.
Right?
What's more catchy? Send us an email and let us know if you'd like us to change the name of the podcast to House Balls and Crickets.
It'd be a weird logo.
It would.
I think that would be the sticking point.
It would be weirder because neither of us have the skills to design it, so we'd have to put out for bid, please design our House Balls and Crickets logo. Can you get blacklisted from places that list those sort of things on the internet? Can you get, like, banned? I'm sorry, that's an inappropriate request.
But they're not just any kind of balls. They're house balls.
House
what a great
balls
intro to that show.
and Crickets. It would be great.
It would be pretty fantastic.
Welcome to House Balls and Crickets. I'm House Balls.
And I'm Crickets.
Yes.
Welcome to our show. And that would be it. We would just kind of say our name 30 times.
I think my favorite part is it's not, I like personifying it because you're not Cricket.
Nope.
No, your name wouldn't be Cricket.
No.
Crickets.
It's not house balls and cricket,
Right.
nor is it house ball and crickets. It's all plural.
Now, you could say if it were House Ball and Cricket, that's a sports podcast is what that is.
That's
all
a
about,
very,
that's a sports podcast.
That's a very good point.
Now that I'm thinking about it, we probably got to Google that. There may already be a House Ball and Cricket podcast.
Let's just steal their logo.
It's great. And, the
their
music,
intro
their
music.
intro music.
We'll steal
It's-
everything.
I think we've really hit on efficiencies here.
So that's pretty much all I did today was eat ramen and talk about house balls and crickets. So it feels like
It's been
a productive day.
Full day.
I went to a rally after work today,
Like you do.
as I am wont to do, and I have this issue, and I don't know if you do this with people.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't do anything with people.
Okay.
We've established that, but continue.
So I have this really strange habit of talking when I should be keeping my mouth shut.
The verbal diarrhea.
Yes.
Yes.
And so there's my executive director at one of my employers. She's a woman that I see very, very infrequently.
Okay.
And I can just keep it simple by saying, "Hi, how are you?"
Right.
I'm great.
She's
How
not
about
looking
you?
for anything else from
She's
you.
not.
Yeah.
Like barely an acknowledgement.
Sure.
And she'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this habit for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I was in the company of her and my wife, Michelle, every single time I'd say, "Have you met my wife, Michelle?"
Oh, boy.
Every single time.
Oh, boy.
To the point where she said, you ask me that every single time I meet her.
You know you've gotten to a place where the other person is willing to go outside of their own comfort zone to tell you, yes, I have, and you ask me every time.
So today I saw her,
Mm-hmm.
and I basically ignored my wife, who was standing right next to me, because God forbid if I introduce her again.
You've gone over the parabola now. Now she doesn't exist anymore
I
when
did
you're around the
I
two of
thought
them.
about it. Like, have you met Michelle? I don't think you have. And I started talking about her hair. And I don't know why. And
Oh.
it wasn't like, "Oh, did you get your hair cut?" Because that's kind of weird conversation.
Yeah.
But I said, "Oh, I was talking about your hair on Monday at work."
Whoa.
I know. There was a photo of her on Instagram with some of my other coworkers.
Okay.
And I'd said to another person in the office, "Hey, so-and-so's hair looks really great." And she said, "Oh, yeah, she's letting it grow." So
In context, that's totally fine.
But I don't say to somebody that I see maybe 3 times a year, "I was talking about your hair yesterday at work." And her face was, "What?
I was stroking a picture of you just last night.
It's funny. I drove by your house a couple dozen times, saw your light on, and figured maybe it's too late. I'll just leave this pie on your doorstep."
And now you're here. Is it because of the pie?
Did you get your hair cut? Because it looks different. You can tell me, crickets. So,
Did you get your hair cut because that looks different? Or it looks different. That would be fine. That would have been fine.
But no.
But no.
I said, oh, your ear looked a lot longer. And then she went into the story about how she had to shower at the gym because there was a boiler problem at home.
Well, now you're bonding. I
no,
guess.
we're not.
Oh, okay.
I think she was just trying to
Gotcha.
make me feel really uncomfortable because I made her feel uncomfortable.
It's a lose-lose situation.
And then I just walked away.
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to say.
Got to the Irish goodbye in that instance.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. I don't know if she was still talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to make a break for it.
At some point, I think your brain, and I've had this experience where you say something, and if you stopped talking at that point, you could convince yourself that you weren't an idiot. You didn't make yourself look like a fool.
It's a stretch for me, but sure.
Yeah, but you could talk yourself into it. The
Sure.
problem is, at least for me, and I think you've experienced this too, is you don't stop talking.
Nope.
You say the first dumb thing, and then your brain goes into panic mode.
Because you want to fix it.
You want to fix it.
Yep.
But all you're doing is digging yourself a deeper hole.
I'm digging a hole.
Yep.
My grandmother told me when I was a little kid, if you're in a hole, quit digging.
Yeah.
But I never really took her advice because she's also the same person that would say to me, well, you know what they say in the Bible? We make plans and God laughs. Like, it's not in the Bible.
Right. And
She
also,
thought it was. Like,
yeah.
she was adamant about that. So I didn't really take a lot of advice from her.
Also kind of defeatist to talk to a kid about. Don't make plans. God's going to think it's hilarious. That's not appropriate.
As I kind of, skip off to Catholic school.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when are you going to be in a hole? Let's be real. When is you, as a young child, going to be in a hole? You're not listening to that advice.
We could talk about the tree limb that fell in my neighbor's yard from my tree that created a hole in his yard, but probably a story for another time.
I mean, with that kind of lead-in, let's leave it as a teaser.
Okay.
For future episodes.
Okay.
It's been real windy here in Vermont
Real
recently,
windy.
especially over the last couple of weekends, and it's just wreaking havoc. And so I can only imagine what you've been dealing with the trees overhanging your house.
At this point, I do not have the emotional bandwidth to talk about it. Let's just say that it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and there's nothing I can do because I can't say, I'll just take down this 80-foot tree myself.
You don't have those kind of skills?
I don't.
No.
I don't have the bucket. I don't have the truck.
You're not
I don't have the
whipping the
tools.
Husqvarna out at
I
any
have
point?
Nothing. I
Cutting
have
down that
nothing.
tree, burning
No.
it up, cut it down, sell it off for 3-4 quart.
Yeah,
3-4 quart of wood, sell it off.
The garden is a jump door.
Yeah, I can't believe it's a multi-$1,000. I'll take that tree off your hands for free. I'll resell that lumber. Don't you worry.
Lumber.
Yeah. I'll get my skid out here. I'll drag it right out of here. No charge.
That's exactly what one of the guys sounded like, but he wanted to charge me $7,800 to remove 2
Good
trees.
Lord. For anybody who's outside of Vermont listening to this, first of all, thank you. Who knew there would be people outside
Thank
of
you
our
very
home state
much.
listening to a podcast?
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. That was a Vermont accent. That was a deep northern Vermont accent that I learned growing up in the Northeast Kingdom.
It's jarring.
It is jarring.
say
It's
the
jarring
least.
for everyone.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a coworker who hates when I do that accent. Hates it. And if I worked at any other place where my coworkers were obnoxious to me, I would do it more often because she hates it. But now whenever there's a new member of the team or somebody who, especially people who aren't from the state, when we talk about having a Vermont accent, most of the people you encounter these days in Vermont, especially Chittenden County, Vermont, there is no accent. It doesn't really pick up that much. But there is a very distinct Vermont accent that is being sadly lost, and so I will make sure to give them a taste. And she can't stand it because it's pretty jarring.
So what part of, I'm new to this area. I've only lived here for about 17 years.
Newish.
I'm newish.
then.
I'm
No.
just
You'll never
finding my way. I'm getting my bearings.
You're not ever gonna really be from here, Fratlander.
No.
So I don't want to hear about it.
But where does that accent come from? Is it like
There's a Canadian crossover for sure.
Okay.
It's got a lot of Nova Scotia in it. I can't say for sure why it's sort of died out pretty much completely. You don't hear it very often. It is funny that somebody came by and had it doesn't surprise me that they had a thick Vermont accent. They were doing good work. And so when you're doing good work, you're just gonna not close your mouth all the way when you talk.
Oh.
Essentially, that's all the Vermont accent is you roll your tongue up, you make sure it's further back in your mouth than you intended to be.
That's really good.
And then you just don't close your mouth.
I think that's really good.
I don't know.
I mean,
I grew up in
I feel less safe than I did 5 minutes ago, but it's you, so it's
ruined the allure.
it's okay.
of being.
We had a whole bunch of guys that came to give us estimates on taking down these 2 trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Vermont's a fairly liberal place to live.
Fair.
But
Chittenden County's particularly.
with the big pride flag
Right.
hanging
Subtle.
over the front door.
Subtle.
One of the guys came by, and it was still windy on Saturday morning when he came by. And he said, "Oh, what's that sound?" And he said, "It sounds like a, is that a flag?" And I'm, 50 feet away from him, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's the pride flag." And he just kind of gave me a look, and then he decided that he wasn't going to be able to do the job for us.
Interesting.
I guess he doesn't take down big gay trees.
I'm sure it was unrelated. Sure, it was completely unrelated.
I want to think that no is related to the pride flag. Because I think, 2 women in sweatpants on a Saturday morning out in the backyard isn't, that's
So
a subtle hint.
Was the tree just wrapped in rainbow ribbons?
Wait,
and
are your husbands not around? I don't understand.
I'm assuming you're roommates and your husbands aren't around.
She's my aunt.
This is my friend / wife.
No. Actually, we're not friends.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're married. I
We
forget.
are. We are.
Sorry. I forget.
Recently on the news, fairly recently, I was on the news for yet another rally that I attended, and I was introduced, in the voiceover part.
Mm-hmm.
I should try and find that because it is actually kind of funny because the interviewer says it very definitively. So he says, Michelle and her friend Kelly Coffey. Like, oh, the jig is up. They're friends. So we're watching this in the morning, and I was like, we're not friends. And Michelle was like, why would they say that? I don't know.
No argument about, but you're my wife. No. Really, the argument is with the idea that you two are friends.
We're not friends. So, yeah,
Well, he wasn't going to take that tree down for you and your friend. That's for sure.
Nope. So I don't know when the tree's going to be taken down. I know that I'm getting maybe 90 minutes of sleep a night.
Oof.
Because I'm convinced that the tree's going to fall on me. And then I like to go outside when it gets windy and just stare at it.
Because that
helps.
It's your mutant
soothing.
power is like telekinesis.
Yep.
Anti-telekinesis. You don't move, tree.
That's
You
my
stay
superpower.
right there.
You stay right where you are, tree.
Arbor woman. With the power to not move trees with her mind.
It would be good. That would be a great superpower to have.
Yeah.
I could put that guy that gave me a $7,800 quote out of business pretty quickly. But can you imagine?
$7,800.
Give me $10,000 and I'll take down these trees. That's what he's saying to me.
Do you plan on adopting a child at any point? I will take them in exchange for removing this tree for you.
Are you going to build an addition onto the house with the wood that you take down from the trees? Because then we're on
maybe you
board.
just weren't asking the right follow-up questions. Maybe the plan is I will take down the tree and then I will build you a lovely gazebo.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll never know, though, because he's not coming back.
And then when he gave me the quote, he said, oh, $7,800. You know what my response was? Dollars? But I think at that point it's a fair question.
You don't know what sort of scale he's on. How are you? You just met the man.
7,800 crickets. Or
Can do. Or house balls? Was that where you were headed? Or house balls?
I was trying to do the math.
What's the conversion rate?
What's the conversion rate from crickets to house balls? Does it switch?
At least 2 to 1.
At least. It depends. It depends on the market.
What's the current market value?
I love when people tell me that. I had to call my garbage company. Is it garbage company? Is that what you call it? Trash removal. I had to call my garbage company. You can take the girl out of Jersey.
If you're not smoking, it's trash removal service.
I had to call my sanitation company.
There you go.
There you go.
Consumables transportation
I had
specialist.
to call my garbage company. There was this uptick in our bill.
Okay.
And I called and I said, hey, can you tell me why there's this increase? Because it's not noted anywhere. We're paying X amount, and now it's X amount plus, I don't know, $4, whatever it was. And she said, oh, well, that cost is driven by the market. So then my response
garbage market?
You know what my next question was, right? What market? You know what she says?
Market specifically?
You know what she says? I don't know.
I just get the emails, lady. It says the market price has gone up and you're paying more.
And you know that when she walked into work, they were like, all right, we sent out the bills 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. People are going to start calling. Just say it's because of the market. And I know she probably asked, well, what market?
Right.
Just say the market. The market. So I never got my answer.
Well,
full disclosure,
mm-hmm.
As I'd like to do every show, I like to tell you something that I think you don't know about me, but I think you already know it. I can't listen to our entire podcast.
Interesting.
I will have Michelle kind of listen to it.
I think the people listening now can relate.
historically, the third podcast is always the toughest one.
I've read that research.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
As the old Irish adage goes.
Exactly. You just got to push through it.
But like, I can't listen to it. I'll have it on and she'll listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll hear her kind of reacting.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's things that you say. Which is fine. And so I asked her, I said, am I not entertaining? And she said, like, I live with you every day. Kind of like, look, I endured this every day.
She said live. She meant a lot of other things.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we haven't gotten into any of the predetermined segments. I'm air quoting everybody listening. I'm air
You're
quoting.
doing a lot of air
Doing a lot of air
tonight.
quoting, which
I
is.
want you to pace yourself.
I read a quick thing about how to do a great
hammy.
podcast, and they were like, make sure you make a lot of gestures, especially if it's an audio only podcast. Do a lot of gesturing. So that's what I'm doing.
That works.
But we haven't really gotten into any of the segments that we predetermined in episode 2, and I think it's because we're not really sure that any of that's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that we both love TV, so if there's one thing that might continue to return on Bitter Coffee, it is talking TV.
Oh, absolutely.
And we were chatting before, and we were mentioning the fact that we brought up all the streaming services in the last episode. We were talking about Netflix, and we were talking about Amazon, and we were talking about all the ways, and Hulu, and all the ways that you can get content these days without having to worry about commercials, without having to worry about watching just one episode. And it brought to mind the idea of a particular commercial that I think
I know where this is going.
we have talked about you having
I know where this is going.
particular objections to.
I have such a strong dislike for Donald Sutherland. Can't stand him.
Interesting.
I don't like his voice. I don't like the fact that, like, he was great in MASH. I thought he was great as Hawkeye. And now when he talks, he just doesn't open his mouth anymore. And it just...
It's like the opposite of the Vermont accent.
Yes.
You don't
exactly
close your
what
mouth
it
with the
is.
Vermont
It's
accent.
exactly
You don't
what it
open your
is.
mouth if you're Donald Sutherland.
And I don't even know if we're allowed to play. Are we allowed to play commercials?
So there's a particular commercial that you...
Because
because he does the orange juice commercials.
Yeah. So Simply Orange
Oh.
might owe us some money.
I mean, I think it might go the other way.
I
But let's not quibble.
I don't know.
You know, it's funny. You mentioned the orange juice commercials when we had touched on this, and I didn't even realize that Donald Sutherland was the voice of Simply Orange. But now that you've mentioned it, those commercials drive me crazy, and I don't even have a problem with Donald Sutherland.
Or do you?
Well,
because it sounds like there's one developing.
You may have uncovered something.
Oh.
Again, it's a show about learning. It's about learning about each other. It's about learning about ourselves.
It's about sharing.
It's about sharing.
It's not about Donald Sutherland. Although right now it is.
Right now it is about Donald Sutherland, which I'm sure he'd be thrilled about.
So there's this wide range of Donald Sutherland commercials that I can't stand. It's basically why I got Hulu.
Oh, I see. Oh, you got Hulu so you wouldn't have to listen to Donald Sutherland
I'll
on
pay
TV.
$10 a month so I don't have to listen to his commercials. Or really any commercials. But Sutherland was the driver.
Specifically, the Sutherland suite of commercials.
Yes.
Okay.
He speaks to the fruit in a very strange way. All right, let's see.
Life is good when you're a Simply Orange. You soak up some rays in the morning. Grab a cool drink around noon.
If you're an orange?
Yeah.
And sleep soundly at night.
You're an orange.
No one looking to freeze or concentrate you will ever set foot in this paradise. Simply Orange. Simply unfooled around with.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
First of all, he's a liar. Because I don't know when you've been to Florida last.
Try to avoid it.
It's very hot.
It sure is.
They're not getting a cool drink around noon. And they don't have the option of leaving the tree.
Uh-huh.
They just sit there.
Right.
So I don't understand how he's trying to like reason with the oranges. Like, look, your life is great. You're an orange. My life, I'm an actor who refuses to open up his mouth. My life is horrible. But you, orange, you lay there, you take a shower, you sleep. They're like retired.
Did they discover that like depressed oranges make worse juice? Is the idea that
you know
he
what?
needs
I'm sure
to
there's a
be
study
there?
somewhere. I'm sure there is, and I'm sure
That sounds like a Florida study if there ever was one.
All right, I'm going to try a couple more because there's
Okay.
one where I feel like he kind of flirts with the oranges a little bit.
More than he did in that first one?
Yeah, that
All right.
yeah, it's like predatory.
So, how exactly does Simply Orange always taste so fresh and delicious? Well, we're prepared to share our secret recipe. Grab a pen. You ready?
Sure.
We start with oranges,
You writing this down?
and then we add nothing.
Oh,
I got the pen for no fucking reason, Donald.
unbelievable.
Orange. Honestly simple.
That's something a liar would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
No, I'm with you on this.
I swear to God.
I was ready to shoot down your argument about your hatred for Donald Sutherland.
Were
but,
you really?
Well, it felt a little extreme. And again, past tense, felt a little extreme. I think if you start listening to Simply Orange commercials sort of back to back, there's... Oh, boy.
Precious little oranges.
Ooh.
Destined for greatness. To create the most perfectly delicious orange juice in the world.
Boy.
Simply Orange. Apparently, the juice doesn't fall far from the tree.
Well, that doesn't even make any
See,
sense.
like
now,
he's trying to be clever.
sure, something I
and
want to point out.
flirty. He's trying to be flirty.
I'm curious. Something to point out. Again, the listeners aren't here, so they can't see this. But
Oh, I'm
during
so tense. It makes my shoulders hurt.
you need some orange juice
I
to
do.
loosen that up. If
I'm thirsty.
Donald Sutherland,
Yep.
thirsty for
Thirsty.
oranges. You know what I'm saying? So I noticed something when that commercial was happening.
That I'm filled with rage?
Well, there was that. That was fairly overt. But for the listeners, when he was pouring the orange juice,
It's the worst sound in the whole world.
really.
Yeah. Well, okay. Do you want to break it down?
I mean, we're
okay.
here.
My worst two sounds in the whole world.
Oh, cool.
Things being poured into glasses
Interesting choice.
and Donald Sutherland's voice.
I didn't,
So you
I
put
didn't see
those-
that coming. I
No,
should
you
have.
put those two together. My idea of hell is having to listen to Donald Sutherland's Simply Juice commercials because it's no longer just orange.
Right.
He does apple and
Oh.
he might do like, I don't know, he does like whatever juice flavors are out there.
Well, at a certain age, you get bored with the same old thing every day.
Right,
You can't
branching
just,
out.
Oh, good use. Good
Oh,
work
I
there.
didn't see that. I didn't see that
was
until
great
after
work.
it happened.
That was great work. No, I think
Donald Sutherland will steal that.
you're with with an orange every day. Sometimes you need a little apple in your
You
life.
have to branch
you know?
out
You got to
to
branch
the apple
out.
field.
So he's gonna just move on to trees at some
It
point.
sounds
Just
nothing-
doing
My Donald Sutherland sounds more like the garbage lady. Yeah, it's a market.
again. You're opening your mouth too
Simply
much.
orange. Simply garbage. It's a shame that probably won't make the podcast.
It is a shame.
It's kind of a shame that's going to be cut out, but it's
I have the power. I have the
it's
power to
okay.
leave it if I
know.
choose to.
I mean, I think that should be the whole show. Just you and I yelling simply garbage.
Welcome back to the Sutherland Dilemma. We're here today to talk about the lemonade commercials.
I'm house balls.
And I'm Crickets. And I hate Donald Sutherland.
I hate juice.
How many non sequiturs can one put in a single podcast? We're going to test that limit here today.
I think we're reaching our max.
We've hit the maximum, I think. I think we're both just a little bit punchy. You mentioned about the world in which we live these days and how hard it can be to sort of separate yourself. And I hope that folks listening can have a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour of just not thinking about the incredible weight of all that is happening around us at all times. Because that's what I do when I'm here and I get to talk to you for an hour about whatever.
Yeah, we have like a really heavy meal.
Yep. Weigh ourselves down, but with carbs, not emotions.
No, right. And then we let it out. Yeah. I mean, I do look forward to this. I'm hopeful that listeners do too.
Yeah, we hope you do out there.
Now that we've been branded we've branded ourselves a comedy podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot to live up to. And so far, no good.
No.
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 None at all.
I think we spoke too soon.
You want to just go back to podcast?
Maybe.
Maybe next episode we take the comedy back out?
But then what do we ask?
Relieves
What
the
do
pressure,
we
relieves
answer
the
when
pressure.
people are like, "Oh, so what's it about?" Like I don't think I'll ever have an answer.
I think if we had an answer, we'd be bored. And I think that's what we want to
Yeah.
avoid. We don't want to be bored by structure. We don't want to be bored by a particular topic. We want to talk about what we're going to talk about. Yeah, rules
Yeah.
were made to make sure that society continues in an orderly fashion, but also to be broken in terms of podcasts.
Like, I think people would be surprised if you and I did, like, a podcast with a political slant. It'd be like, oh, really?
Here's an interesting question.
Oh.
What would be the podcast people would be the most surprised to learn that you and I are hosting?
This is a wonderful question.
Is it the random question? Maybe it's the random question today.
It feels like it could be.
Okay. If it were about a particular thing, what is that thing that would be so surprising to people?
Makeup. like beauty. I would listen
Really good.
I would listen to that podcast.
I mean, you and I would listen to that podcast because we don't care about makeup.
Right.
Because
Right.
we know that you and I would do a terrible job, but it
Right.
would be entertaining.
I think other things like books we read, so that would be
Yeah, that's one that we... I mean, for you, movies you've seen. That would be a really, really difficult podcast for you.
You're right. Okay. I have no response.
No, you were passive-aggressively organizing
I'm
the
not
pens.
looking at you right now. I'm looking down. I'm sorry. I'm on the phone right now.
How'd your podcast
I'm
end?
busy.
Well, I kept bringing up the fact that Kelly's never seen a movie.
I've never seen a lot of movies. Like, the kinds of movies that I've never seen are the kinds of movies that, like, there's, like, slogans on T-shirts. And I'm like, what is that
The kind of movies that
mean?
influence pop culture.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the movies you haven't seen.
Yes. But I have seen a lot of movies, but I've seen a lot of
Right.
bad movies.
Sure, it's people have seen a lot of TV, and there are people who have never seen Saturday Night Live. But when I was growing up, I had really bad insomnia, and so I saw a lot of episodes of Saturday Night Live. I was up every night on Saturday to watch something, and Saturday Night Live was on because we didn't have cable or anything like that.
Sure.
I have seen most of the episodes of Saturday Night Live within, between the years of 95 and like 2006, like in there somewhere. And I didn't realize how many times I referenced things from Saturday Night Live. Classic Mike Myers things, guest hosts at the time, Jim Carrey when he was on the show, guest hosting, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of the Wayne's World things, all of the Sherry O'Terry and Will Ferrell era,
Ugh.
all of those things. I use those in my day-to-day conversations.
Sure.
I didn't realize that that wasn't something that everyone understood until my wife would say, "What are you talking about?" I would say things like, back away from the bubble jets, which is a line from Jim Carrey's hosted episode where he's a lifeguard at a jacuzzi. Hilarious concept.
That's funny.
I didn't realize that not everyone understands that. Not everyone has seen those things. And so I understand what it's like to live in that world where you have not seen everything and you don't get some popular culture.
Yeah, you
things.
mock me for it whenever you get the opportunity.
As
no, it's
Homer
fine.
Simpson famously said,
Maybe I'll start
just
sitting in the back seat
because-
on the next trip. I don't know.
just because I don't care doesn't mean I don't understand.
Yeah, that kind of hits the nail on the head. So I'm watching a new show.
Mm-hmm.
The first. Have you
Just-
seen this?
Just started a week ago.
Okay, me too. And what number episode are you on?
I want to say we've watched 3 episodes?
There's still a lot of that show that I'm trying to piece together.
Same.
And I have a feeling by this time next show,
Mm-hmm.
all of our questions are going to be answered. Or
Or
do you think there's going to be
None
a
of them.
season 2? Because I already feel a season 2.
interesting. There very well could be.
I feel
I'm waiting for them to get to a place where things make a little more sense. I mentioned Castle Rock before. We were sort of in the same boat with that show, but that felt like it was by design. This show, it just feels like, where are we going? And who is the random Creole voice?
The guy with the quarter and the crickets.
It
Right?
all comes back to crickets.
Are they?
Yes, there's like a bug molt thing
Yeah.
in,
Are they
in the middle of one episode, and he's just doing an over
the
voice about.
caterpillars?
Yeah, he's just talking. I'm assuming that's going to be the sort of the main character, the woman who owns the space agency that's doing all of these missions, or runs it, not owns it, runs it. I'm assuming it's going to be like her father, that because she's from Louisiana.
Okay.
And he's obviously got sort of a bayou sort of vibe, and so I'm assuming that it's going to be her father kind of giving her lessons throughout.
Interesting.
But for the record, we have no idea because it's just a random person talking midway through the episodes, and there's this strange bug scenes. If this isn't making you want to see the first, I don't know what will.
I have a completely different theory over who that guy is.
I'm ready.
You know who I think he is? I'm going to tell you. Now,
so I didn't respond.
No,
yes,
it's
I'm ready.
fine. No, with your eyes, you told me that you were ready for my answer.
Again, great for the podcast.
And stick with me. I think because the wife died.
That's what we're led to believe. Yes, we haven't gotten there in the flashbacks.
And they found her in the river.
Oh, they found her in the river?
I must have missed that.
I must have missed that.
I think he's the person who murdered the wife.
Ooh.
That's who I think it is, because he's creepy.
That's far more interesting.
Remember with the quarter?
Yeah.
He put the quarter in the machine, in the...
If you haven't seen the first, none of this is going to be interesting to you. That being said, and we haven't brought it up.
How did we not sell that show on that description? There's a quarter and a machine, and there's bugs, and she died.
It's going to be great fodder for the House Balls and Crickets podcast.
Yeah, the best of House Balls and Crickets.
The show is actually about trying to go to Mars, and I think we've had enough of that story, and I think this show realizes that, and so none of it's really about trying to go to Mars.
No, it's not.
It's
I
about
think initially
old Sean
it was.
Penn and his daughter.
It's Jack Sean Penn.
Jack Sean Penn.
Daughter's a bit cagey.
Troubled past.
Troubled past.
Present.
She's trying to work it out.
Yep. As are they, trying to mend their relationship.
Yep. And yeah, there's a lot going on there. I think I'm on episode 3. I believe I'm on episode 3.
We're on 3 or 4.
So it's 8. There's 8 episodes.
Oh, I didn't even look. There are only 8.
Yeah, I think there's 8. Yeah, we don't have long to go before all of our questions are answered.
Or none of them are.
I don't think any of them will be. It's a beautiful show to watch.
It is. It is beautifully done.
It's gorgeous. But is it a coronet? Their theme music?
Oh, my sweet Lord. We mute it during the intro and the outro, which,
because
again,
it's a lot.
It's a Hulu show, and I'm pretty sure it's a
Hulu
original.
Can we play that?
Maybe we can. It's pretty much unrecognizable as anything.
Maybe we'll find out.
See if you can find it. But it's a Hulu original. So between episodes, if you don't hit next, if you're just waiting for it to go to the next episode, Hulu for some reason has decided that you need like 100 seconds between episodes. And so they run the credits very slowly, and they go through every single possible credit. And during those credits, all that's playing is this, what seems like it will go on forever. And I'm looking at the video playback on my phone right now, and it says there's 3 minutes of this.
That's a lot.
Which is 100% accurate because we're waiting for the episodes to change. And all you got for
movie credits.
3 minutes is...
Pass out.
That's it. It's just basically this on a loop. And it feels like it's never going to end.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. So I think this episode of any episode, it's appropriate to end with a sort of feeling of, huh. And I think we're there.
Yeah.
And I think we've done that.
I think so. I'm exhausted.
I am emotionally and physically spent.
You know, it's...
But I think we hit on some good things. We once again discovered a show that we didn't know we were both fans of.
Yep.
I mean, if nothing else, we got the House Balls and Crickets thing.
Yes. What else does one need?
What else does one need?
Yeah.
So, thank you everybody for listening to
we're sorry.
Bitter Coffee, and we apologize if you listened to the first 2 episodes and thought to yourself, yeah, this is going to be good. This is probably a better representation of what the show's going to be like.
This is our drop-off point.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us again at...
Get at me.
Get at us both on bittercoffeepod@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at Mobydiculous on Twitter. Kelly's Twitter, as previously discussed. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's better you don't know.
We live in a tough time, and Kelly is expressing herself on Twitter.
Yep.
If you did enjoy the podcast, and Lord knows I'd be surprised, but if you did, please leave us a review on iTunes. That helps us out a lot, and we would really appreciate it. And we may read some at some point down the line. That's
I'm sure we will.
I'm sure we will. All of our 5-star iTunes reviews are what we're going to read. Yeah. If you have questions, suggestions, shoot us an email. Otherwise, we'll be back next week Our intro and outro music is Hold Me Down by John Worthy and the Bends. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye. Woo!